Welcome to the Sensitive and Neurodivergent podcast. I'm Julie Bjelland, and I'm very happy that you're here. We're going to be talking about 25 traits that are common in the sensitive autistic phenotype. Many of us, hundreds of thousands of us, are discovering that we're autistic. What we've previously thought as the highly sensitive person, many of us, maybe all of us, are actually autistic. And I've been trying to bring this to light in different ways for people to learn more. Even the word autistic it's difficult in lots of ways because there's been so many stereotypes about autism that often we didn't see what anybody that represented, somebody that was, it's like our experience was not represented, and therefore it was missed. Many of us were misdiagnosed. But I think that if you relate to these 25 traits, you definitely want to explore this further. I do have a free autism quiz that can give you more information, and I will link that in the show notes. And I recommend taking it if you relate to many of these 25. Because autism was defined for so long through a very narrow lens and inaccurately, only based on a small sampling of white boys, that many women, or those, especially those socially conditioned as female, have a very different experience. And I've coined the phrase sensitive autistic phenotype for us to understand this type of autism profile. And I want to go through some of this with you to see what you relate to out of these 25. The first one is a feeling of that you've always felt different, out of place, like you didn't belong. Some of the words, I do autism assessments on adults, and it's so fascinating. And I've written down some of the words that autistic people discovering they're autistic later in life have used to describe their experience. Feeling like an outsider, being told that they're shy from a young age, non-conforming, that you just find conforming difficult. You felt weird, you felt different, felt wrong. You've dedicated your life to being better. You felt out of place, othered, isolated, lonely, awkward. You didn't fit in the box, feel like an alien, uncomfortable in your own skin, not enough, flawed. And then there's also the thing of like not belonging, and that the sense of you either talk too much or you don't talk enough. You're too quiet or you're too talkative. You ask too many questions or you don't enough. It's like the concept is that there's something that isn't right. That's the message that we're getting from a young age. And it changes everything in our lives to have that message. So that's the first one. The second one is feeling socially anxious or awkward around unfamiliar people. So how do you feel you're walking into a group of new people? Is that something that makes you feel anxious or awkward? That is the experience of the sensitive autistic phenotype. And number 3, you've struggled with anxiety or depression throughout most of your life. I have not met an autistic person that has not experienced anxiety. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that. We have a lot of fight-flight activation for a lot of different reasons: sensory overload, the world not being set up for us, feeling like there's something wrong with us. All of those things can activate that fight-flight, giving us the feeling of anxiety. It's really interesting, too, that most autistic people have had several different diagnoses. They've seen a lot of different types of doctors. And what we've missed is the umbrella of all of it, which is autism. Number 4, I prefer one-on-one or small familiar groups over larger gatherings. Autistic people crave meaningful, deep connection. oftentimes just connecting deeply that way with one or two people in their life, not necessarily having a whole bunch of different people, but that wanting that more deeper connection. Number 5, being told that you're either too quiet or you ask too many questions or you talk too much. And that's that concept of receiving messages that you're just not quite right. You don't have that balance right. And really what we're talking about is that there's been this box, this social norm box that society has created with an expectation that everybody is supposed to fit in that box. But if you lined up 100 different brains, they would all be different. And we should not be expected to be in that box, and trying to fit ourselves into a box that doesn't fit, doesn't feel right, affects us in so many different ways. Number 6, being told to smile more, or that your neutral expression looks upset or unhappy, which leads to misunderstandings. Maybe you're feeling neutral, maybe you're enjoying yourself, but you've had people comment on, what's wrong? Are you upset? This is really common for autistic people to experience that. We might not show as many facial expressions as a neurotypical person is expecting. There's a lot of reasons for that. There's a lot that we're processing in the moment. It might take a little bit longer to process something. We're taking in so much data. There does seem a lot of autistic people, their resting face is often misconstrued and misunderstood. So if you've heard that before, why don't you smile more? Or is there something wrong? That's also an indication. Number 7, consciously thinking about eye contact, if you're making the right amount, or that you notice that you need to look away when you're talking to someone. This is something that's common. A lot of autistic people find it very distracting and intense to make eye contact for a long period of time. Like if I'm sitting across from somebody at a table having a conversation, if I have to really make that eye contact for an extended period of time, I will actually feel nauseous. So I get a physical sensation from too much eye contact. It's almost like it's too intense. But interestingly enough, when I've learned in autism assessments is that a lot of women were conditioned early to make eye contact. They were taught to make eye contact. And the difference with neurotypical is that neurotypical people are not thinking about it. They're not thinking about, am I making this eye contact? Is my eye contact too intense? Is it not enough? It's just, it's something that's a little bit more natural. So for an autistic person, it's something that we're actually conscious about commonly. Although for many people, there's a lot of nuances. For many people who were taught at a young age, they might not necessarily realize that they've had to do that consciously or been taught to. Number 8, often feeling like you're on a different wavelength from other people, even when you're trying to connect. That's a common thing. You may have heard me talk in previous episodes about the double empathy problem and communication differences, that autistic people have a different way of communicating. It is not a deficit. It is just a different way. And in fact, there's a lot of people that think that autistic communication style is superior in a lot of ways. Autistic parents can be excellent in the way that they're describing something, explaining something. We tend to prioritize data, information, facts, clarity, honesty, genuine. And neurotypical people tend to prioritize social, which means that's why you might be expected to read between the lines. They're not being direct about what they're actually asking for, or they're worried about what somebody's feeling, so they might tell a lie. Things like that is a different style of communication. And number 9, I often feel misunderstood, even when I'm trying to be clear in how I communicate. This is really common for autistic people. And that's, again, when you put 2 autistic people together, they don't generally have a problem communicating. But it's when a neurotypical person or a non-autistic person and an autistic person are communicating, because there's a difference in communication, they can often be misunderstood. For example, autistic people might ask a lot of questions, and that might be interpreted as something as if like the neurotypical person might be thinking like, oh, are you questioning me? Do you not believe me? But that's not what's actually happening. It's just that autistic people like to have a lot of data, a lot of details, a lot of information. Number 10, that you might feel distressed when plans change unexpectedly because you need time to prepare. This is common for autistic people. We often have to prepare ahead of time where we're thinking about our energy levels. A lot of people talk about you're thinking about every detail, how you're going to get there, who's going to be there, what are you going to wear, what's the temperature going to be like, are you going to have enough energy for it? And so you've already done a lot of preparing and planning. So if something gets changed unexpectedly, that can be disrupting and distressing. Again, there's nuances to this. If somebody's lived in a situation where they have a lot of transitions and changes constantly happening, they might be a little bit more adaptable in this area. But I've also seen that, like, for example, college age is used to having, classes change and lots of things changing. So when I'm doing assessments for somebody in their early 20s, they might answer this question a little bit differently than somebody who's, 50 plus, who's has a little bit more set in their ways, a little bit more, they have kind of created a life that works. So shifts and transitions can be more challenging as we get older at times. And number 11, planning ahead for social situations or activities, especially to manage energy. So that's something similar to what I was saying before, but specifically around energy management. It's really common to have challenges with energy, especially as we get older. I've seen this a lot past 40, 50, 60, for example. As we start getting midlife and older, energy levels really are a lot more difficult. Although I can remember my mom thinking that there was something wrong with me because my energy always seemed so low when I was young. And that wasn't understood, but now we understand. I mean, the world's not set up for autistic people, so everything that we're doing just takes more energy from us. And also the brain pruning that you may have heard me talking about in previous episodes, where the autistic person doesn't have as much brain pruning. So if there's 100 things to observe in a room or to notice in a room, an autistic person will notice all 100 things almost equally. That can mean different levels of sound, where a neurotypical person has more brain pruning. So their brain, like for example, if there's a noise in the distance, is sort of canceling that noise out, and their brain's not paying attention to it. Whereas an autistic person, that noise is just as relevant as the conversation. So a lot of times, like, overlapping conversation or audio can be challenging. I know for myself, I thought for a long time that I had a hearing issue because, like, if the TV was on and somebody was trying to talk to me, it's like I could not hear that conversation. Or we're in a loud, busy restaurant, I cannot hear what the person next to me is saying. Like, my sons talk so, I feel like they talk so quietly, and when they're talking to each other, I mean, I can't even hear what they're saying because there's like overlapping noise around. And now I've learned that. I've tested my hearing and it wasn't my hearing. I've learned since, after understanding autism, that the overlapping sounds often tends to be a challenge for autistic people. Number 12, I have intense focused interests that you can completely get absorbed in, losing track of time, maybe even forgetting to eat or rest, that you're so passionate and so into your interest. I've heard autistic people describe it as that I want to learn everything there is to learn about whatever they're interested in at the time. And that might mean you just dive so deeply and your supercomputer brain is just absorbing every single detail and of what you are interested in. And then when you might be done with that and move on to another subject or researching something that you're passionate about. So the intense focused interest is a big part of autism. Also, repetitive movements. Now, this is something that a lot of people don't realize that they're doing. I've done a lot of assessments where we do video assessments, so I'm visually watching the person when I'm doing an assessment. And speaking of assessments, something that I'm really proud of is that I've now designed a 90-minute autism assessment, so you can actually get results within 90 minutes. This is after years of deep dive research, studying adult autism, studying the sensitive autistic phenotype. And the reason that I've been able to do that is because I am so clear about what I'm looking for to diagnose autism. And often, I mean, I shouldn't say often, all the time, when somebody comes to me for an assessment, they've already been doing their research. So I listen. My type of autism assessments is more of an interview style, and we dive into your internal world. I have a lot of concerns about some of the autistic assessments that are being done by practitioners that are using certain criteria that's considered like the gold standard of autism diagnosis, but many high masking or internalized presentations of autism will not get diagnosed using that criteria. So I believe that my method, where you dive into someone's internal world, is where you're going to get the answers and be able to really understand the nuances. So repetitive movements, it's like fidgeting, tapping, hair, playing with your hair, cheek biting, skin picking, playing with your fingers, your nails. You're constantly kind of moving something in your body. It's a calming, it's calming, it's regulating, it helps focus. I think there's so much energy happening in the brain of an autistic person. It's my theory too that we need to move some of that energy through our body, so it can be difficult to not do those things. Like a lot of people, like I started to have pain in my hands because I'm constantly doing something with my fingers or my fingernails. And so like trying to change some of those movements into other things can be helpful. They can also show up as vocalizations, like humming, singing, making noises in the throat or the mouth. And oftentimes I've had people say, no, I don't do any of those things. And then I'm watching them do the exact same thing with their hair, like over and over again, for example, or touching a part of their face. Or it's really interesting because, so think about that. Is there something that you're doing that's like a repetitive movement or vocalization? Some people even do dancing. I mean, walking on their toes. There's a lot of different things that can be repetitive. And also, autistic people experience meltdowns, shutdowns, emotional collapses, burnout when overwhelmed and exhausted or exhausted. There is a point at which we have all experienced. This is actually an area where a lot of autistic people have a lot of shame about. But actually, when you understand what's happening in the nervous system, it helps you be able to understand yourself, know what your needs are. And we're all taught to just push and pass the point of where we're not okay anymore. And I think it's really important for us to start to listen to our bodies and what type of self-care is needed for our system, and not doing things because we think we should, or trying to fit in that box that everybody else is fitting into. But these are important pieces of the experience. Meltdowns can be crying. It can be, it can turn into aggression, extreme irritability. Shutdowns can be where you just like, that's it. You cannot do anything else. Like some people even get into a place where they can't even speak. They're just so shut down, sort of staring off into space, or even just not being present anymore, almost like you take yourself somewhere else. And so these are really common. Burnout is such a 15. We talk about burnout. from years of pushing yourself, masking, or feeling understood. Autistic burnout is a real thing, and a lot of times misdiagnosed as depression. And burnout can be anywhere from weeks, months, years, depending on how much you've pushed yourself, how much you've rested in between. And it's something that's very serious on our health. Number 16, you've learned to please others or hide parts of yourself to avoid rejection. This is something that especially those raised as female were taught to do. Your value is in giving up your own needs in order to please others. And it's a very unhealthy experience to live that way. And a lot of autistic females especially have been raised to do that, and also to avoid rejection. There's a rejection sensitivity that's common in autism. I think that we try so hard to fit in when we're young. It's a survival mechanism, and rejection is devastating for someone that's trying to survive. And so often, I could think about, I put a smile on my face and people thought I was just happy all the time, but I wasn't on the inside. And I think that when I look back on my life, that's exactly what I was doing. Number 17, monitoring or adjusting how you show up in social settings to avoid judgment or seeming weird. There's like this, it's almost like you have somebody next to you with a clipboard making notes and judging everything you're doing. And that is a common experience as an autistic person. It's this back of your mind voice that's just like, they think you're weird, you're doing it wrong, you got to do it different. How are they doing it? Okay, I got to do it that way. I don't want to seem weird. I don't want to stand out. I don't want to be judged. So you change something about yourself in social settings. So for what I did was smile, and that made people comfortable with me rather than showing the real me. And it took me until midlife to really start changing this about myself. Because when we are changing how we show up in social settings, there's a lot of things that cause problems with that. It really uses up a lot of energy because you are always monitoring, am I doing this right? Am I doing it wrong? Do they think something's wrong with me? To have this constantly in the back of your mind. And also, it can be very difficult to connect with people when we're not being ourselves in the world. Like, I used to think there was something wrong with me when I was growing up. That's like, why do I feel like it's so hard to connect? For me to feel connected to people. And it was because I wasn't showing up as my true, real self. And it wasn't until I started showing up as my real self in the world that I felt connected. And that is a big challenge for a lot of autistic people. Number 18, feeling emotionally or physically drained after social interactions. Autistic people talk about this a lot, that it is exhausting to go out in the world, especially as you get older, because you're a lot less resilient generally. You've been through a lot more physically, and both mental health and physical health, and energy levels are even lower. So I used to joke that I had like a 2-hour social limit. So my friends would be like, oh, Julie's got to leave. It's 2 hours. And that's still true. I don't have a lot of energy for social interactions. And of course, like when as I was saying before, when we're not showing up as ourselves in the world, then those social interactions are even more exhausting. If you're thinking about, what's my facial expression? What's my gestures, my body language? Am I doing it right? Am I saying it wrong? If you're constantly thinking about those things, it's very draining. Number 19, like this need to regularly have alone time to recover and feel like yourself again. And without the alone time, that's when the meltdowns, shutdowns, burnout happen. So that alone time is so precious for an autistic person. And a lot of us grew up with the message that there's something wrong with us for needing so much alone time. And we may have even been secretive about it because we thought something was wrong with it. or we feel guilty when we're having that alone time. But it is a sanctuary for an autistic person to have alone time, really be completely alone. It's the one time that they have complete autonomy without having demands, without having the pressures, and just getting to do what you want. And that alone time is very valuable, and it cannot be skipped. If you're autistic, you cannot skip alone time. It's needed. Number 20, feeling fatigued often, even when you haven't done anything physically strenuous, that you often feel fatigued. Again, this worsens with age and very common. Energy is a big issue for autistic people. I think so many things are taking our energy, and we're living in a world not set up for us. So it takes even more energy to do that, to just exist when you leave your house. Number 21, that your brain feels like it's always on, thinking, learning, analyzing, preparing, replaying, that you're just always on this brain. And it is, it's an interesting experience. There's pros and cons to that, of course. The pros being that our brains are just full of information, data, especially the things that we're passionate about. And we're always wanting to learn. I mean, autistic people are just so dedicated to constantly learning. And of course, we're always analyzing things and picking up patterns, and we're preparing. And then replaying is like a lot of autistic people end up replaying things. Like maybe they had a conversation earlier in the day that they're replaying, that they're thinking about, oh, wow, what did this person think of me? I think that they were judging me? Did I say I should have done this? I should have done that? Like this replaying of experiences. And so that brain always being on is a very common autistic trait. Number 22, you experience at least one of these regularly: fatigue, pain, headaches, digestive issues and sensitivities, skin issues, strong reactions to medications or certain foods. If you've experienced at least one of these regularly, this is very common for autistic people. And that can be among, there's so many reasons for that. I've talked about this in some of my articles on my blog, and in previous episodes too. We talked about some of the chronic illnesses and things that we see commonly in autism. Number 23, you react more strongly than others around you that you notice to sensory input is common, like bright louds, loud or overlapping sounds, scratchy textures, temperature changes, strong smells like artificial fragrances, things like that, artificial chemicals, cleaning products, things that are, a lot of autistic people talk about that, things that are artificial. And your tags in your clothes, or like for me, I have to, if I get like a favorite, if I find a material that I really like in like a shirt or something that's very soft, doesn't have tags, feels comfortable, I want to get that in like a bunch of colors in the exact same shirt. A lot of autistic people talk about that they wish they could wear the same thing over and over again, and many of us do. Maybe we just have a different color, but if we find something that works, we stick to it oftentimes. Like I have a challenge if they for shoes, for example. I've heard this happen for others, where it's like if suddenly that shoe the shoe's not good anymore, you need to get a new pair, and they don't make that shoe anymore. It's like, oh no, might have to get used to something new. It's really challenging. A lot of us have strong reactions to temperature changes, like heat, cold, those kinds of things. Fluorescent lighting, there's so many things. Just think about sensory wise that it's strong, and that's very common for the sensitive autistic phenotype. And number 24, you feel like it's harder to enter or exit a conversation with a group of people that you don't know. A lot of autistic people tell me that they generally just stay quiet in these situations, that they're entering a group of people that are already talking, and you're entering into that space, that it can be challenging to enter that conversation. A lot of autistic people feel like they're having to interrupt to talk. And also, just as commonly can be exiting that conversation when you're just bored with that conversation, or you want to leave, or you need to leave, you're in sensory overload or something. How do you exit that conversation? It can feel awkward and uncomfortable and not natural. And the final one, a strong sense of justice and fairness, that you can feel deeply upset by injustice, even when it doesn't affect you personally. This is a common trait in autism, and a beautiful trait of autism is that we care very deeply, and often with that caring means we're doing something about it. Like there's a lot of different things that we do that can help the world in ways that are needed. So these are some of the 25 common traits of the sensitive autistic phenotype. If you are someone that is exploring, could this be me? Could I be autistic? I have so many resources on my website. I will link in the show notes. I have a free autism quiz. I have a lot of information about the research I've been doing. There's a guide for understanding autism in women. There's a course for discovering you're autistic as an adult. I have an autism group that's for it's for people that have discovered autism in adulthood. I definitely recommend joining that. That's online and inside my sensitive empowerment community. That's a free group inside the community. And it's wonderful because we're all getting to talk about our experiences, and it's very empowering and validating to talk with other people who have had these experiences and share these experiences. I do a lot of education in that group as well, sharing a lot of information, and we just have some wonderful discussions. So there's so many good, there's a lot of good resources on my website that you can go to, sensitiveconnection.com. And in the menu, go to the autism tab, and you will see that there is a lot of free information there as well for you. And I hope this has been helpful. I would really love to hear from you if you found this helpful. If you are interested in doing an autism assessment with me, I would love to meet with you. I also do autistic consultations if you just want to have a session with me. Those sessions can be done from anywhere in the world. We can do it video, audio, even live text, depending on what you prefer. The autism assessments are via video. And it's my favorite subject and I've researched it a lot. So people find sessions with me incredibly validating and supportive. And I would love to talk with you if that's something that you would find supportive. And I hope this episode has been helpful. If you found it helpful, please share it in some autism groups, share it with family, friends, colleagues. This is how we spread accurate information about autism in adults, especially the sensitive autistic phenotype. And we need good information out there. So feel free to share the research that I have on my website, the resources, all of it. And I'd love to hear from you. If you found this episode supportive, you can go to my podcast page on my website and make comments on this episode too. I always read the comments. And if you have any questions, you can email me. And I'll put all that information, as everything's on my website, sensitiveconnection.com. And I look forward to hearing from you. And I hope you take good care of your beautiful, sensitive self. Bye-bye. Until next time.